Desire. It begins as a whisper, a gentle pull toward pleasure, comfort, or satisfaction.
But left unchecked, it grows into a storm that consumes the mind, drains the body, and darkens the spirit.
From the Buddha's blazing fire of greed to Lao Tzu's wisdom that he who has few desires is strong, ancient teachings warned us, desire is the gateway to corruption.
In our modern world, indulgence is celebrated. Every craving is one click away.
Food apps tempt us endlessly. Social media parades lust, luxury, and wealth. And the slogans of our age, do what you love, enjoy life now, no limits, have become chains disguised as freedom.
But what happens when pleasure becomes your master?
When every small indulgence slowly erodes your will, your vitality, and your peace.
When uncontrolled eating weakens the body, lust drains your energy, and endless consumption empties both your wallet and your soul.
Today, we explore the eighth path of corruption, uncontrolled desires, the invisible force that turns freedom into slavery and vitality into decay.
Together, we'll uncover how desires infiltrate life, how they destroy vitality and karma, and how through mindfulness and sincerity, one can rise again, reclaiming mastery over body, mind, and destiny.
Welcome to Bookcast Story Show, Bookcast Episode 10, The Eighth Path of Corruption, Uncontrolled Desires, Eating, Sex, and Consumption.
Okay, so let's unpack this foundational concept because the source material makes a really crucial distinction right at the start. It helps avoid this just being about, moralizing.
Right. Desire itself isn't labeled as inherently destructive, is it?
No, not at all. It starts as pure, creative, neutral life energy. That's the key starting point.
Like the very spark of life, the thing that makes us want to do anything.
Exactly. It's the engine, the fundamental energy that makes us move, innovate, connect. I mean, if you desire to be a better person, that's positive energy, right?
Sure. Or build something useful, create art.
That's a creative force. It's neutral. Like electricity is neutral. It just is.
Okay, but electricity can burn down your house if it's not properly wired, as you said. So where's that wiring failure here? When does that pure, neutral life energy mutate into what the source calls obsession?
Well, the mutation happens when that energy is fed without awareness or without limits. That's the crux of it.
So it goes from being something you harness.
It's something that harnesses you. It transitions from a positive, directed, driving force into this consuming, uncontrolled influence.
The difference being intent and consequence.
Precisely, like the desire to learn a new skill, healthy. The obsession to just endlessly scroll educational stuff online so you're paralyzed and never actually start. That's corrupting. It drains you.
It really sounds like the core problem isn't the feeling itself, but the lack of management afterwards.
That's it.
And maybe that's why basically every foundational wisdom tradition, going back thousands of years, treats the control of desires as, well, the single most crucial threshold for human development.
Absolutely. It's seen as the pivot point. The control of these basic instincts determines whether one, ascends to or falls from the higher levels of humanity. The source material draws really heavily on these ancient warnings.
They saw uncontrolled desire as the central block to wisdom and peace.
Exactly. You can't get there if you're constantly pulled off course.
We have that incredible image from the Buddha in the Dhammapada calling desire an unparalleled blazing fire of greed. That language, it doesn't suggest a slow burn, does it?
No, it suggests rapid, total destruction if you let it run wild inside you.
And the other analogy, desire as the strongest net of delusion, that's powerful too.
It implies that indulgence doesn't clarify your vision. It actually binds you in illusions about what happiness or fulfillment really are. You end up chasing shadows, thinking they're real.
Yeah, believing the next hit, the next purchase, that's the thing that will finally satisfy.
Right. And contrasting the Buddha's fire nets imagery, we have Lao Tzu's really simple affirmation. He who has few desires is strong.
And that strength isn't about muscle or power in the usual sense.
No, it's about inner autonomy. It's the strength of will, the spiritual integrity you need to stay centered, even when all these external cravings are pulling at you.
If you're constantly pulled by wanting the next snack or the next gadget or the next bit of attention, you can't possibly be strong inside, can you?
You're fragmented. Your energy is just leaking out everywhere.
What's often missed, though, and what the source highlights really well, is how subtle this erosion can be.
That's crucial. Desire isn't usually this loud, catastrophic failure. It doesn't typically announce itself, with a trumpet blast demanding you ruin your life.
It's the subtle erosion, the secret destruction of will and vitality. It's like a gateway effect, a slow seep.
Exactly right. The danger is that desire never limits itself. It finds the smallest crack, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe you indulge in one extra cookie today. Then tomorrow, you justify buying some little thing you don't need. The day after, maybe you waste an hour replaying some argument in your head.
It just permeates everything. Food, attention, hobbies, eventually, the big addictions.
It's that quiet corruption that sneaks up on you. It convinces you it's just harmless comfort. Just this once.
I think the analogy they use for people who can't control their desires is, well, it's incredibly memorable. It paints this picture of people leaving their doors wide open in the dark.
It really is. It's designed to make you feel that vulnerability. By just passively surrendering to impulse, you're essentially allowing these corrupting influences in.
Like what kind of influences?
Low-grade energy, restless thoughts, anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
They just infiltrate your inner life, your vitality, your will. It's being depleted daily, bit by bit, making you weaker.
So it's not an active fight you lose. It's a passive surrender that costs you every single day.
That's it. It's death by 1,000 tiny cuts.
So if you spend, say, 20 minutes of your mental energy arguing with yourself about ordering takeout, or waste an hour scrolling social media when you know you should be resting, that energy is just gone.
Poof. It's like a daily tax on your inner resources.
And then when a truly big challenge comes along, or a major moral decision, your willpower battery is already flat.
The small leak eventually sinks the ship. It's the cumulative effect. That's the real corruption. It's a loss of sovereignty over your own time and energy.
It really makes you think. So before we move on to the specific forms this takes in our modern world, maybe a question for you, the listener.
Where in your life has a small comfort turned into quiet control over you?
Now, moving from that philosophical route, we have to acknowledge something really important. The battleground today is, well, it's unlike anything those ancient wisdom traditions ever faced.
Oh, absolutely. We are living in a culture of actively open desire, and it's often engineered by corporate interests. This isn't just the occasional temptation. It's constant. It's algorithmic bombardment.
It's unprecedented, isn't it? We're just surrounded by incredibly sophisticated temptation, specifically designed to bypass our rational minds and hit those instinctual desires.
The source highlights some specific modern examples that really illustrate this culture of open desire perfectly.
Like food delivery apps, they're not just convenient platforms anymore, are they?
No, they're constantly suggesting appealing dishes,
Yeah.
using these incredibly stimulating photos and videos, promoting continuous, often unnecessary consumption. They don't want you to just eat a planned meal.
They want to trigger your taste buds every 15 minutes, promote impulsivity.
It's sensory overload as a business model, and the same principle applies right across the board. Look at social media.
Flooded with provocative images, suggestive ads, glamorous displays of wealth.
It feeds both things, doesn't it? The desire to be desired, that's the sexual and social validation piece, and the desire to have the material accumulation. This constant bombardment trains our brains to expect immediate external rewards all the time.
And what makes this modern environment so incredibly tricky is how these urges get framed. They're often disguised as personal freedom.
Exactly. The source notes how these influential slogans, life is for enjoyment, I'll do what I like, love without fear, are used to encourage immediate gratification, often without any critical thought.
So when someone hears love without fear in today's world,
the source suggests that often translates to just acting on sexual impulse without considering the energetic cost or the long-term emotional fallout. When you're told, do what you like, it often means buy the thing now, ignore your savings plan. These slogans make instinctual control look like autonomy. It's quite insidious.
but if you're constantly acting on your very first impulse, you're not really free, are you? You're just being manipulated by your own instincts, or worse, by the external forces that profit from them.
Real freedom requires that gap, doesn't it? That space between the stimulus and the response.
And the data. Well, the data seems to back up the severity of this crisis of control. The source material presents some pretty alarming statistics from a 2024 survey. I believe it was the Vietnam Youth Psychological Data Center.
That's right. And these aren't just abstract concepts anymore. These are empirical results showing how desire is actively controlling behavior on a large scale.
Let's break down those numbers because they paint a really stark picture of modern vulnerability, especially across those three pillars of indulgence.
Okay. First, let's look at sexual energy. Over 65% of the young people surveyed had engaged in sexual activity before the age of 20.
And the source interprets that as...
As a reflection of societal pressure,
Yeah.
really, and the normalization of immediate sexual gratification, often bypassing the deeper emotional context or the energetic considerations that were traditionally associated with intimacy.
Okay. Then there's consumption.
Right. 82% reported making unplanned purchases at least twice a month. That figure just screams impulsive desire, doesn't it?
It really does. The majority of young people consistently spending money they likely didn't budget for based purely on immediate appeal.
And finally, that emotional-physical connection. A staggering 90% admitted to overeating when they felt stressed.
Wow, 90%.
It shows that the body, specifically that craving for comfort through food, has become the dominant coping mechanism for emotional distress. It's overriding conscious regulation for almost everyone.
Those figures are, well, they're pretty devastating. They show this pervasive lack of self-regulation across all the major vectors of human vulnerability: our physical consumption, our sexual energy, our material wealth.
It proves that this eighth path of corruption isn't some abstract idea. It is actively, measurably disrupting lives and depleting people's reserves right now.
And this disruption manifests through specific, almost quantifiable losses of energy. That's what the source material defines across these three pillars. These aren't just moral flaws in this view, they're actual mechanisms for depleting vital energy, what Eastern traditions often call kai, or, vital essence.
Exactly. They have real tangible costs.
Okay, let's start with eating without awareness. This is often seen as the most benign form of indulgence, isn't it? Just having an extra slice of cake.
Seems harmless enough, right?
Oh.
But the source claims the specific energetic cost here goes way beyond just simple weight gain. It's centered on the digestive and mental systems.
Also.
Unrestrained eating, especially of really stimulating or complex foods, it weakens digestion. Specifically, it impairs the spleen and stomach functions. In traditional Chinese medicine, these are absolutely central for transforming food into usable energy.
So if that digestive fire is weak.
The resulting energy is poor quality. But crucially, this leads to a disturbed mind. It makes concentration and clear thought incredibly difficult. In short, chronic overindulgence in food, according to this source, dulls the body and makes mental clarity almost impossible.
So that pizza you have at 11 p.m., it doesn't just sit heavy in your stomach. It directly sabotages your ability to focus, to pursue your goals the next day, because your internal system is too busy dealing with the overload.
Precisely. It's a theft of your mental bandwidth, which leads us to the second pillar: promiscuous sexual activity, what the source calls lust without respect.
And the cost here is described as much more profound, right? Related to the deepest reserves of life energy.
Yes. And we need to pause and clarify here, like you did earlier. The source isn't condemning intimacy itself. Not at all.
It's specifically about the uncontrolled, promiscuous pursuit of lust, viewing partners as objects for temporary pleasure.
Correct. That specific type of activity is described as causing a profound depletion of spiritual energy and significantly weakened kidney function.
And the kidneys, in traditional thought, are vital.
Absolutely essential. They're seen as storing the jing, or the vital essence that's your original inherited energy resource. It governs longevity, vitality, your core constitution.
So if that's constantly depleted...
The physical symptoms noted are things like blurred vision, chronic back pain, weary knees, telltale signs of deep energy loss. This pillar is defined as draining the very core of one's vitality. It leads to premature aging and deep exhaustion.
That's a heavy cost. It reframes sexual essence not as something limitless, but as a finite resource that can be squandered through carelessness.
It forces you, the listener, to view this energy differently, not as an endless supply, but as a critical part of your destiny reserve, your potential.
Okay, finally, the third pillar. Consumption addiction. Consumption without limits. That means excessive spending, collecting things, that compulsive need to possess. What's the non-financial energy loss here?
Well, it obviously dissipates financial energy, yes.
Yeah.
It hinders a practical accumulation of wealth. But more abstractly, the source claims it diminishes your natural ability to attract material abundance.
How does that work?
The thinking is, if you're constantly chasing things from a place of emotional lack or emptiness, you're actually projecting an energy of neediness and depletion out into the world.
So you're trying to fill an internal void with external stuff.
Exactly. And in doing so, you're emptying your soul, preventing true, sustained prosperity, which is rooted in contentment, not craving from ever taking root. This addiction empties the soul.
So we have three distinct forms of indulgence, each with a specific mechanism of energy loss described here. Eating dulls the body, promiscuous sex drains vitality, and consumption empties the soul.
It forces us to confront the reality that our habits aren't just lifestyle choices. They can be active drains on our self-mastery, our energy, our potential.
This raises another important question for you, the listener, reflecting on that data and these specific costs.
Which of these habits most often takes more than it gives?
When we look beyond those physical and, well, financial costs, we get into the realm of the hidden costs, the spiritual and karmic consequences that apparently accumulate silently over time.
Yes, and the source material is very clear on this point. Pleasure feeds the senses, but it inherently starves the spirit.
That's the core paradox, isn't it? We indulge to feel full, to feel happy, yet the underlying act of constantly seeking external gratification leaves the inner self.
Well, famished, starving for true connection, for purpose.
And every indulgence, when it's driven by that lack of awareness, creates what the source calls a karmic debt. It's attachment disguised as freedom. Okay, I understand the practical, psychological side, burnout, exhaustion, lack of focus. But when the source talks about karmic debt and spiritual depletion, what exactly are we talking about for a modern listener? Is this purely metaphorical, or is it making a claim about, the structure of reality?
It functions as both, I think, but primarily you can see it as an energetic accounting system. Spiritual depletion is that loss of your inherent enthusiasm, your spark, your connection to purpose.
And the karmic debt.
The karmic debt generated by immoderate behavior is the creation of a heavy pattern, a groove you get stuck in. If you continually choose instant gratification, which is essentially greed, you establish the karma of restless thoughts. Your mind just won't settle.
And how does having restless thoughts translate into negative life consequences, according to this view?
Well, the long-term consequence isn't just about feeling agitated today. It transforms into the karma of inability. Inability to accumulate wealth because you can't stick with a plan. Inability to cultivate yourself because you lack focus. Inability to lead others because who follows someone constantly distracted.
So the result is stagnation.
A stagnant and purposeless life, yeah.
Yeah.
Where despite all your external efforts, you never seem to gain true, lasting ground. It's like running in mud.
It sounds like a kind of spiritual viscosity. Your progress gets sticky and slow because your focus is always fragmented by the next craving.
That's a great way to put it. And over time, that constant leakage of energy, it erodes courage.
How so?
The person operating from that kind of deficit loses the audacity they need for real personal change. They become less able to stand up for their principles or pursue difficult, high-reward goals simply because they're constantly operating from a place of low inner power.
Right.
They just don't have the reserves.
Okay, the impact on the energy field and intuition, this is perhaps the trickiest concept to grasp. The source says desire opens the door for low-frequency energy fields. We need to define this carefully.
Right. When we talk about low-frequency energy fields or low vibrational frequency, the source is essentially using a metaphor for chronic negative mental and emotional states. Think pessimism, anxiety, exhaustion, deep dissatisfaction.
So it's not necessarily something spooky, but a description of a persistent inner state.
Exactly. If your energy is constantly being drained by craving and indulgence, you are perpetually living in a state of low-grade misery, or at least low-grade vitality. That's the low frequency.
And this low-frequency state translates to what, in practical terms? What does it affect?
It affects your ability to perceive higher truths, maybe your own intuition. It affects your ability to attract positive people and situations into your life. And it definitely affects your ability to make sound decisions.
The source material gives some distinct markers for this state, doesn't it? Physical and spiritual signs.
It does. It says those addicted often lose the light in their eyes. That spark of inner vitality literally diminishes. They lack inspiration. Their souls feel shallow. And crucially, they become easily manipulated by external energies.
What kind of external energies?
Could be anything, really. Cults, manipulative relationships, aggressive advertising, anything that preys on weakness. They're just weak and vulnerable to exploitation because their inner defenses are down. They lack discernment.
Okay, let's try and visualize this whole path of corruption clearly. Can we walk through that destructive diagram provided in the source material? It seems to link these abstract concepts together logically.
Sure. It starts simply enough. Desire arises, that initial impulse for food, sex, spending, whatever it is.
Then comes the critical failure point, lack of control, meaning you act on that impulse immediately instead of pausing, observing.
And this immediately triggers the first wave of tangible loss. Depletion of vital energy, destruction of spiritual power, and loss of wealth. Your engines are basically running empty.
Which leads directly to the internal psychological and spiritual consequences.
Right. A disturbed mind and a loss of self-confidence. You lose faith in your own ability to govern yourself. You feel weak-willed.
And the end state, the accumulated result of doing this over and over, that's the heaviest part.
That's the heavy karmic burden, a weakened energy field, and the inability to attract noble benefactors. Those positive, helpful forces or people who could genuinely help elevate your life. They just don't seem to show up, or you don't recognize them.
It's a really comprehensive diagram of decline, isn't it? It shows exactly how a seemingly small indulgence, like, say, compulsive overeating, can fundamentally alter your future prospects by destroying your internal capacity for growth and change.
It gives you the full picture of why these seemingly small things are considered so dangerous in this framework. They don't just affect the moment. They dictate your entire life trajectory by draining your most precious resources, your energy, your focus, your spirit.
It certainly makes you pause and think about where your own energy is truly going day to day, which leads us to ask you,
do your pleasures leave you lighter or emptier?
Okay, so if we accept this premise that uncontrolled desire is a major path to corruption and energy loss, the crucial question becomes, how do we reclaim mastery? How do we get back in the driver's seat?
Thankfully, the source material doesn't just diagnose the problem. It provides a really comprehensive, practical 4-step system for self-discipline. The focus is on rebuilding inner strength and, importantly, establishing a higher reference system for your life.
It sounds grounded. Where does it start?
It starts with step 1, awareness before action. This is all about moderation in the body. The core practice is creating a deliberate, conscious friction between the impulse and the action. You have to pause, breathe. Observe the craving before you just blindly obey it.
And the plan breaks this down specifically for those 3 areas of vulnerability we discussed: eating, sex, and consumption.
Exactly. For eating, it's about mindful engagement. That means more than just eating slowly, though that helps. It means really savoring flavors, eating on a strict, time-bound schedule, which helps stabilize the digestive system, and maybe using a digestion journal.
A journal. How does that help?
It helps you monitor how different foods and different eating times actually affect your energy levels and your mood. It acts like an objective observer, holding you accountable. It shifts the experience from mindless stuffing to conscious fueling.
Okay. And for sexual energy?
The core instruction is to avoid promiscuous relationships. But the source also strongly recommends practicing semen retention, if possible for the individual, or at the very least being acutely mindful of timing and partners.
Now, the concept of semen retention, that might sound arcane or strange to many listeners today. What's the central idea behind it in the context of this source material?
The focus is strictly on energy conservation. The source views the vital essence, the jing we mentioned, released during unmindful or very casual sexual activity, as a major drain on the body's deep reserves.
So by practicing retention or just being more mindful about timing and connection?
You're essentially protecting that core vitality. The idea is that the energy can then be recycled back into the nervous system, the brain, used for spiritual cultivation, rather than just being dissipated externally for fleeting pleasure. It treats this essence as a valuable resource for life mastery, not an endless supply to be spent casually.
Got it. And for consumption, the key seems to be discipline and emotional distance. How do you achieve that distance when the temptation feels so immediate and emotional?
First, practically, you absolutely must create a clear spending plan, a budget. Know where your money should be going. But crucially, the advice is to avoid shopping when you're experiencing strong negative emotions: sadness, anger, stress.
Why then, specifically?
Because those emotions are what the source calls low frequency. They drive impulsive, often wasteful behavior. You buy things to feel better, but it doesn't last. The mechanism for awareness here is keeping detailed daily expense records. That forces you to see exactly where your stored energy, your money is being lost due to these fleeting emotional states.
Right, making the unconscious conscious. Okay, that's step 1. What's step 2?
Step 2 is about discipline through small abstentions. It's about rejuvenating inner strength. This is just about denial for denial's sake. It's about redirecting that conserved energy, the energy you save by not indulging towards strengthening your willpower itself.
How do you do that?
A key recommendation is regular morning exercise. Simple, but powerful. This serves to transform what the source terms crude energy, that sluggish, undirected power you might feel, into refined vitality. It improves physical health and mental clarity at the same time. You build positive momentum for the day, not through indulgence, but through positive exertion.
And meditation is central here too, isn't it? Specifically, practicing the ability to see without doing. That sounds difficult in a world that constantly pushes us to act, react, consume.
It is difficult, but it's perhaps the ultimate exercise in energetic conservation. When a desire arises, say, a craving for a specific food, or the urge to check your phone, you simply observe the physical and mental sensations of that craving without acting on them.
Just watch it.
Just watch it rise and fall. Each time you successfully overcome even a small craving like that, the energy, instead of being lost to the impulse, is consciously redirected. The source claims this redirection literally strengthens the prefrontal cortex, your brain's center for willpower and concentration. You're building inner resilience. It's like lifting weights for your spirit.
Ah, so that explains the practical how. By practicing observing that craving for, say, 60 seconds without acting, you are literally transferring energy from the impulse center of your brain to the decision-making center.
It's exactly right. It's described as both a neurological and an energetic upgrade, achieved through restraint. Not suppression, but conscious restraint and redirection.
Okay, fascinating. Moving on, steps 3 and 4 seem to focus on the bigger picture. Feeding the higher hunger and rebuilding the life reference system. You have to replace the vacuum left by chasing pleasure with something more substantial.
Absolutely essential. The purpose shift is key here. Pleasure should cease to be the ultimate goal of your life. The standard by which you measure your life should instead be based on cultivating inner strength, peace, and wisdom.
That reframes everything, doesn't it? All your daily decisions.
It does. You stop asking what will make me feel good right now, and you start asking what choice leads to greater peace and clarity tomorrow? What aligns with my deeper values?
And our social context matters hugely too, apparently. Choosing companions wisely is listed as a vital step.
Because our associates often determine our habits, don't they? If you surround yourself with friends who constantly encourage late-night partying, excessive spending, gossip, frivolous behavior, you'll inevitably be dragged down energetically.
So the advice is?
We need to consciously choose to associate with people of integrity, discipline, and righteous character. People who provide positive motivation, accountability, and inspiration. These are the noble benefactors the source speaks of, people who elevate your energy rather than deplete it.
Find your tribe wisely. And finally, there's a purification process mentioned, reading classic scripture or wisdom literature weekly. Why is this seen as necessary?
The source sees this as a kind of mandatory mental cleanser. Think about it. We live in an ocean of what it calls cultural desire trash. The constant stream of advertisements, fear-mongering news cycles, superficial social media trends, all designed to stimulate low-level desires and anxieties. Wisdom literature, whether it's scripture, philosophy, poetry, provides a higher, purer frequency to counterbalance all that noise. It nurtures morality, clarity, and true wisdom. It's like a spiritual detox for the mind.
Okay, this whole 4-step process, it sounds comprehensive, but maybe a bit abstract. Does the source give a practical example of this transformation?
Yes, it does, and it's quite a powerful one. It details the story of an individual who was really struggling profoundly with that combination of sexual and financial indulgence.
What was happening?
He was addicted to masturbation and also lavish spending. We're talking about spending 15 to 20 million Vietnamese dong, that's VND, each month.
Yeah.
A significant sum that constantly drained his financial stability and created immense internal shame and anxiety.
So he was simultaneously leaking vital energy and financial energy, exactly that cycle of depletion leading to loss of inner faith we discussed earlier.
Precisely. He was caught in that downward spiral. But he committed to a short, intense, 21-day self-discipline regimen based exactly on these 4 steps. Semen retention, very detailed expense tracking, and regular morning meditation combined with exercise.
What was the key insight for him?
The key was the detailed tracking. He realized through that awareness that he bought things not because he needed them, but primarily because he felt this sense of dread and emptiness after work each day. He was trying to fill the void.
He made that crucial emotional connection between the impulse and the underlying feeling.
Yes, that awareness was critical. So this combination, cutting off the low-energy outlets, the spending, the compulsive sexual release, and simultaneously building positive habits, meditation, exercise, budgeting, started to shift things.
And what were the results? Over what time frame?
The results, over just 6 months, were described as profound. But the source really emphasizes that these weren't some kind of miracle. They were the natural consequence of redirecting his energy.
What were the visible signs of change? What did people notice?
Well, apparently his physical appearance changed. His eyes became noticeably brighter, clearer, which the source directly attributes to the conservation of that vital essence, the Jing. His speech gained gravitas, a sense of authority, that growing inner strength translating into external presence.
And practically.
Most practically, his bank account began to accumulate wealth for the very first time in his adult life. He stabilized his financial destiny. He broke the cycle.
That transformation from a life driven by lack and impulse to one governed by presence and purpose, it really demonstrates that direct link between mastering desire and mastering your life.
It shows that the energy that was previously just being funneled toward fleeting pleasure was successfully redirected toward building purpose, stability, and substance.
It really confirms that idea that every single craving we experience is fundamentally an energy signal, and we actually get to choose where that energy goes. Do we waste it or do we invest it?
Which makes us consider, perhaps,
what if every craving was really a call for meaning?
As we start to wrap up this exploration, it feels important to offer some gentle reframes, to really solidify the core philosophy here, because this isn't about becoming some harsh, rigid, self-punishing ascetic. That's not the goal.
No, it's about becoming a master of your own inner world.
Exactly. And the source material draws a crucial and I think quite liberating line. Desire itself is not evil. Attachment is.
Can you unpack that distinction a bit more?
Desire is the raw, neutral energy, the initial spark, the wish to move forward, to experience something. Attachment is the inability to let go. It's the compulsion to repeat the action, to grasp onto the feeling, even when it's clearly destructive and costing you dearly.
So it's the clinging, the neediness, not the initial impulse.
Right. And similarly, control is not denial, it's redirection. It's about wisely regulating desires, knowing when enough is enough, knowing when to stop, and maybe even using that impulse energy for higher goals, rather than just trying to completely eliminate the feeling, which is often impossible anyway.
The goal is always self-mastery, isn't it? Not self-harming deprivation.
Always. And if we can achieve that mastery, even to a degree, we arrive at a much more robust definition of true freedom.
Because freedom isn't really doing what you want just because an impulse pops into your head.
No, the source argues that's just slavery to the impulse. True freedom is not needing to. It's the ability to choose your response consciously, regardless of how strong that internal urge might feel. That's real power.
So controlling desires, in this view, means mastering one's vitality, one's mind, one's wealth, and ultimately one's destiny. Those 4 key elements of a fulfilling life.
And conversely, the person who cannot control their desires, no matter how much external success or status or wealth they accumulate, they will always be controlled from within by those primal urges.
They remain an instrument of their environment or their own base instincts.
Fundamentally, yes, regardless of appearances.
So the final instruction, the takeaway message, seems simple, but incredibly vital. To live a life at a higher level, operating from a place of strength and clarity. You must first cut off the low-energy outlets. You have to plug the leaks.
Controlling desires isn't seen as self-imposed hardship or punishment. It's framed as the essential act of preserving your lifeline, your core energy, your vitality, your spiritual strength, all the resources you need to build a truly peaceful and prosperous life. It's perhaps the most fundamental act of self-preservation and maybe even self-love.
Which leaves us with one final, reflective question for you to carry with you.
How would your life feel if you desired less but loved deeper?
Warm. The goal is not to kill desire, but to guide it. When discipline shapes desire, freedom returns.
True vitality doesn't come from indulgence. It comes from alignment. When we master our cravings, we master our destiny.
Closing. That's today's reflection on the Bookcast Story Show.
We're Sam and Lily.
Thank you for listening. If this talk gave you insight or calm, please like this video and subscribe so you won't miss the next episode.
Until next time, stay centered, stay conscious, and keep exploring.